Hurttlen was from Union, New Jersey. He had a brother, an older brother named Ralph, I believe, Hurttlen, who his peak rating, I think, was just under 2,200, like 2,188 or something like that. Anyway, from Union, New Jersey. And he starts the game here with Henry Bird's opening. Now, Henry Edward Bird lived from July 14th, 1829 to April 11th, 1908. He was an English chess player, author, and by profession he was an accountant. Although it is said that he lived for chess and would play anywhere, anybody, anywhere, anytime, under any conditions. In this game, Bobby Fischer would have been 13 years of age. And yeah, he had just made National Master. You can see there, 2,200. This is the first time in the series, and I think I've put up 50 games so far. First time in the series that he actually had the National Master title, and he just barely got it. Anyway, coming back to Henry Bird and Bird's opening, in the New York tournament of 1876, Henry Bird received the first brilliancy prize known to have been awarded, and that was for his game against James Mason. You can find it. Knight f6 here, knight f3, g6, b3, bishop g7, bishop b2, and castles. And here Norman Hurttlen leaves the opening book and plays d3. The annotation bot gives that a question mark. The book move is e3, and the most common book line continues with d5, the Dutch variation, bishop e2, c5, white castles, knight c6, knight e5. And the most common response to knight e5, no longer in the ECO, but still in the database, is queen c7. Let's go back. In this game, Norman Hurttlen with d3, and you can see all the gaping holes on the dark squares. Now d5 is played anyway. Queen's knight to d2. And e3 is actually the most frequent move here as well. Knight g4, aiming at that hole in the position. Although black should play queen d6 first, hitting the f-man, right? And then after g3 defending, then bring your knight in, attack the e3 square. Oh, I guess I'm wrong. Let's go back. Knight g4 by Bobby Fischer gets the stern look from the annotation bot. Bishop takes the bishop. Knight e3 hits the queen. Apparently, it's better to play king takes bishop first and then knight e3, but I mean, he's not going to leave his queen there, so that bishop's still going to be there to capture. So I'm not sure why the bot prefers to play this first, but that is what the bot is asking for. All right, well, knight g4 by Bobby Fischer. Bishop takes the bishop. Knight e3. Queen c1, and now king takes the bishop. Queen b2 check here. The bot calling for king f2. Interesting. I would not have thought of king f2. I will say that knight c4 caught my attention, but that probably also fails after knight takes bishop. Yeah, it gets a question mark. Oh, it gets a inaccuracy, but after knight takes bishop, and I get an exclam for that move, and your knight is still hot, so you have to move it to safety, and then black picks up an extra pawn in the process, although white is compensated with an open file. Although I can kind of nix the effect of the open file by playing pawn h5. All right. Anyway, my only point was that knight c4 is not going to work out. Queen b2 check was played by Hurttlen. f6, d4, bishop f5. Now rook c1 defends the super attacked pawn. King f2 is still being asked for. Well, king f2 is quite an interesting move. I mean, I'm going to play knight g4 check and force you back anyway. So, all right. Rook c1 by Hurttlen. Knight c6. The bot calling for pawn c5. Pawn c5 in this situation isn't really my favorite line. I kind of like queen d6 here. You get an exclam. Oh, it downgraded me to a star. But still, the point is I'm hitting this pawn, and he's going to have to play g3, and then I can play knight c6. I get a star there. Well, Bobby played knight c6 right away. Queen c3, and that hits the knight. So here knight takes the bishop, knight takes the knight, queen d6 now is played, and pawn e3. Apparently queen d2 should be tried. Knight b4, threatening to fork the rook and queen. So black with some strong initiative, and I thought he should play queen d2. He played queen b2. The bot says rook d1. What does it think of queen d2? I also get a star for queen d2. All right, coming back to the game, queen b2 was played, and we go ahead with bishop takes the c-man. Now king to d2. Interesting. Bishop back to e4. And now knight d3 is being threatened, isn't it? Forking the queen and the rook. So knight e1 to prevent that. Queen's rook to e8 is played here. And knight g3 hitting this bishop. Pawn e5, rook f1. Pawn takes the queen's pawn. Queen takes the pawn. The bot didn't or the eval bar did not like that move. The annotation bot gives it a check mark, but the eval bar, look at the eval bar shoot up in black's favor. Perhaps he is contemplating queen c5 because Bobby played b6 to prevent it. Oh yeah, why not take the free pawn? a3 hits the knight, pawn c5. Ah, okay, so that wasn't to prevent the queen, that was to prepare pawn c5. So the queen retreats to c2. Now knight c6, and d4 is in the works, isn't it? Knight takes the bishop, rook takes the knight, and black is just steamrolling his opponent. Don't take that with the pawn. That might seem tempting because it's a discovered check. But as you can see, the eval bar comes back down. And yeah, I mean, black is still better. So it's not the most egregious mistake you can make. But so much more convincing is rook takes with the threat of pawn d4 looming. Knight f3 and d4 is played. Queen c2. Rook takes e3, and that is where Hurttlen resigns. We've got an attack here. So if he defends his pawn with g3, then we can super attack this pawn, perhaps. See what we get. I get a thumbs up. And he could put the question to my rook, but I'm going to take this pawn first anyway, because it comes with check. I get a star for that, and after king d1, I don't have to worry about this tension because I can put the heat on the queen. I get a star for that. I'm on fire with the annotator. Queen b2 is compelled. Now I can super attack this knight with my queen. It's already being attacked by my rook. It's defended by his rook, but now a super attack. And I get a star for that. If he moves the knight to the safe square here, I can give queen h5 check, and now he has no good moves. Oh, it says to take the knight. Well, yeah, I guess, I mean, there's no losing move here. The point is, he doesn't have any good moves. If he defends the knight, he's moving into a pin, and the bot says move the knight back where it was. But we'll look at that in a moment. But if he moves into this pin, I can just super attack this, threatening checkmate. He cannot take the rook. It's checkmate. The bot said put the knight back and just give your knight away. Well, I'm okay with that. Yeah, I don't see why that would be any better move. No, I'm just going to play a discovered attack instead. Now, why does the bot say... Oh, I guess because I can take that any time. Play here first. All right. Well, my point is that no wonder the guy resigned after rook takes e3.